Welcome to our Innovate You Dialogues. The purpose of our Innovate You Dialogues is really to build an inclusive community of women in STEM leaders and professionals who want to learn, share, and connect. I hope our audience will learn and take on new knowledge, new perspectives on the topics, and challenge and expand their beliefs, right? They will also share their wisdom to enrich our community and drive personal and professional growth. So, together with our guest speakers, we'll amplify our values, take bold actions, and create meaningful and connections to create more positive impact in our community and beyond. I'm Amy L, founder and executive coach of Innovate You and Fascinate certified advisor. Prior to my entrepreneurship journey, I had been working in the tech sector for over 20 years, and I'm still passionate about technology and stay curious on how it's going to evolve and how we can contribute and leverage that to shape our future. So back in 2024, end of year, that I had the opportunity to join a collaboration book project and publish the first book, Evolution of Leadership in STEM. Women Catalyzing Change. And there I met Anu, our honored guest today. Anu Nair is a dynamic professional who seemingly blends scientific expertise with leadership and passion for innovation. With a background in genetics and biochemistry, she has built a multifaceted career spanning education, chemical engineering, and quality assurance, making significant contributions to renewable energy, biotechnology, and manufacturing. And beyond her technical roles, Anu holds a PMP certification and actively empowers her community through volunteer work, embodying a relentless pursuit of excellence and commitment to positive impact. Welcome, Anu.
Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for having me on your platform.
Excellent. So today our topic is about celebrating women in STEM, lesson in confidence and advocacy. So we'll cover two key focus areas anew. One is overcoming imposter syndrome to influencing change and leading with confidence. And second is about how to navigate biases and accelerate your leadership journey. First of all, Anu, I want to ask you, what are those key barriers that you might have experienced in your career journey?
When we say about barriers, we generally go on to like mostly female-oriented stuff, right? Which is there, no doubt. But I feel like when, as a person, when you are an immigrant, you have a barrier right then and there, and you might relate to that, right? Because it's whole new culture, everything is different. You are learning, unlearning some of this stuff, right? And then comes the woman factor, right? And here you are trying to prove that no, you are good enough and things like that, which is sometimes I feel like it is very um, too much energy draining for like just to be proving that point instead of like would have seen a lot of difficulties in presenting myself sometimes when I first came in, like, okay, how should I speak for this thing, or how should I present myself here? So varied stuff, right? But now today I am at a point where I only focus on things that matters. For example, if there is a constructive feedback that I get, yes, I will work on it. But if it is just criticism, then I won't. Like if there is a logical reason behind it, I would. Otherwise, I won't. So that is my like any barrier that now comes to my way. That is how I handle it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, so the first thing you mentioned, and I definitely resonate with you, is like being an immigrant myself as well, right? As you first came and you kind of trying to fit in to the new environment and trying to get a sense of how people take in and what is their culture like and how do you fit in. And so that becomes like a constant on alert, right? That
Mm,
you're trying to kind of change yourself and trying to not to please but also to kind of get to understand how other people's communicate and how you communicate with others that people can understand you. And I remember very clearly when I first came to Canada, people couldn't really understood my English. Not that I wasn't speaking English, I had an accent, and I think like everybody has an accent. I
yeah.
still have an accent. Yeah. So when you think of that, like what kind of lessons you learned on like overcoming that type of barriers that you had over time?
So, what I used to do was, so I was at first, I must say, like I was very spoiled and pampered kid, right? So, yeah, the accent thing that you said, like. Even today, when I'm like heavily explaining something, I go back to my accent, and sometimes it is difficult. So, um, it's so I have now what I have tried is I don't try, like you said, like we try to fit in. Now I don't try to fit in. That is what I
Mhm,
do. I be myself. I respect everything and everybody, and that's about it. And like, and how I came to this is honestly, it is just life lessons. Like you have situations every time you come across a situation, and you're like, okay, maybe I should listen to this person. But then the other person would have exactly different thing to say, so then you are like, which one should I listen? Like both, sometimes both person are doing very well at their own career and everything. So I would be like, okay, whom to listen? So then I had to sit with myself and I had to figure out, like, you know what, you have to listen to things that is best for you. So I would take
mhm,
in all the advices and suggestions and feedbacks I would get, and I would see, okay, what path I am trying to take and which one best fits. So in that, like you are keeping your I would say aura positive, and you
mhm,
are listening to people, right? I became a listener honestly. Like I used to just listen to people a lot. I'm like, okay, okay, and then when I'm asked, only then I speak, sort of,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
So that is
Yeah.
that is what helped me, because when I used to listen, I was like, okay, this is a different perspective, this is interesting.
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
sometimes we don't listen, that is what I feel like.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah,
So
of listening is really crucial, right?
yeah.
And then you interpret it. What does that really mean? And how do you apply, right, after you listen to the feedback? Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Like it
yeah.
doesn't have to be like always be beneficial for you. Some of them would not even align with your uh, life or culture, or what
Mhm.
path you are trying to take. It might not even line. It's okay.
Right.
There is no harm in just listening. You might know, like at least you will know where that person is coming from, what is their perspective. So at least I'm like,
True,
okay, okay, this is what you feel, and I
true,
respect that. So that
true.
gives
Mm,
me, that keeps me in a very peaceful place. So that keeps me in a place where I'm okay with who I am. So
yeah.
that was the only key through those barriers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then you're keeping it true to yourself as
Yeah,
well, right? So being authentic as yourself,
exactly.
understanding that others are coming from a good place, that they wanted to give you advice or to share the perspectives, but you don't necessarily have to take in everything because you wanted to align back to your values and also keep it as a positive, right? And keeping that aura that, as you mentioned. Thanks so much for sharing that. So now I wanted to kind of touch on how about if we talk about confidence, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
sure like you have heard and probably got into discussion and debate sometimes with people and thinking of, okay, imposter syndrome, is it a thing or not a thing, right? And we kind of touch on that then last time as well in another session I had, and how it would actually impact the individuals, right, in their career development. So for me, if I look back, in my career journey that I have had those moments that I really doubt if I had the knowledge or my experience is good enough to even to raise my hand and say, I I can do this role, like, or this is something that I like to take a chance and do it. And I hesitated and I probably passed on a few of those opportunities, like to progress on my career because I didn't meet 100% of that job description, right? And when I see
Yeah.
those posting, and so I hesitated, right? But over time, I did learn that, you know what? I just have to believe in myself, right? I just have to allow myself to have that growth mindset and ask for feedback, right? And continue to learn and build on skills, right? And share out loud what I have accomplished, right? And celebrate that. In
True,
that,
true,
I knew like the confidence slowly and steadily built. So
true.
for you, Anu, I think um how if you could recall like how you felt at that if there were moments that you were not good enough, like you didn't think that you had the skills, and how did you reframe of that? I call it the self-limiting beliefs, right? And build a confidence.
So with me, even though I knew, okay, I can do this, for me, it was always like I used to feel ashamed. Like, okay,
Mhm,
I might be overpowering, or am I stepping on somebody's toes? Honestly, I was always scared of that. So,
mhm,
and like you said, discussions, I had so many discussions with so many of my mentors. That is the main thing that I have had to work on to build my confidence, because I was like, okay, what if I do this? What if because I have heard people say, you might be overpowering, or, you might be saying a lot, or you might be talking a lot, and which might be true. If I start talking, I don't stop. I know. But I never, I never mean to overpower or anything, right? So
mhm,
I had to learn that balance and know that, okay, um through a lot of discussions, that is what I did. Like, okay,
mhm.
I'm good enough, okay, no, I can do this. Because sometimes you, unfortunately, you do find people who would be like, okay, you are not that good, okay, you are not that good. Okay, maybe that's true, but don't say it.
Yeah, I think the different ways of giving feedback, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
not good on what terms and
Yeah,
what it is specifically that, and
exactly.
maybe suggest what you can improve on, right? And how you can do
Exactly.
that, right? Those are positive and constructive feedback, right? And
Exactly.
I like what you said of like talking to mentors, and I think coaches do that, have that same effect, is to help you kind of self-reflect and gain that awareness and learn about what are the key elements that you might need to build upon, right? Whether it's on communication, whether it's how you approach certain ways of solving problem and whatnot, right?
Mhm.
And having those different perspective helps. And as you
Yes.
start doing that and recognizing you could do it, then
Yes.
you start building that confidence.
Yes. And
Mhm,
mostly like I feel like more and more networking helps that, because
mhm,
somewhere down the line, you do find people who would, lift you up, honestly. So along my journey, I have met those people, and I'm like forever
mhm.
grateful to them. I am like, it is because of you guys. That is what I always have in my head. I walk with that gratitude every day, every morning, that, um, I have so many people to thank to, but also because of them, I know that I deserved it. It is
Mhm.
like, reminding yourself both things, and keeping that balance. Like, you are
Mhm.
not, oh, because there is a very thin line between confident and overconfident. So I like to keep myself very grounded too. And I
Mhm.
also don't want those imposter syndrome to, those things to creep back in, because it is very,
Yes.
very, very difficult to get rid of them.
And so once you have that self-confidence, right, I wanted to kind of touch on now you can take on new roles, you can just go outside of your comfort zone, and you can, do whatever, right? And that we can also advocate for yourself more.
Hmm.
and be able to help others,
Hmm.
advocate for others as well, right? And as you mentioned about like having the people around you that can uplift you,
Hmm.
and you are doing the same thing and uplifting others as well. And especially in the context of women leaders, and how like the women leaders come in the community, come together, and women in STEM, like as we
Yeah.
explore in the book,
Hmm.
that we really need that support mechanism to uplift each other, not to
Very
compare
true.
and pull down others so that we can rise. It's really about uplifting
Each other,
in the
yeah.
community, right?
Yeah, very true, very true. Because I
Mhm.
feel like it is when you are a woman, for some reason you have that imposter syndrome. I don't see that anywhere else. I don't see that in the opposite gender. And I'm honestly, I don't know why that is. There should be a study done, honestly, why
we
why we are like that. But
I think we see more of, right? I do believe that, and I've seen that there are others, men also would experience that. But I
oh,
think the proportion is overly,
yeah,
highly on women, and
uh,
I believe that also is part of the upbringing, like that we have been taught in the way that we are on the supportive role, we
that is
are
true.
on the way to ensure that people around us are getting everything they need, right?
Hmm.
And we serve like it, and we have that in our upbringing. So a lot, regardless of culture, which is
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
So with that, how do you advocate for yourself, as a leader, and advocate for others?
So what I do is, like I said, like listen. I do put my point. I say, okay, if suppose there is any kind of thing, right? So I like to communicate first. I would like that if anybody for XYZ has issues, I would like that person to come and talk to me first of all. And if I have, I would do the same, right? So because I feel like 99% of the things can be solved if you just sit face to face and just talk it out. And if it is like a very huge issue, then I would listen. I would listen. I
Mhm.
would, because I'm someone who likes to fix. If I know there is an issue, I like to fix that problem. I'm wired
Mhm.
like that. So if somebody tells me, okay, this is the issue, I would try to fix it. That is who I am as a person. So that is one of my approach, and I would come up with something that would help me resolve that thing. And if I have a team, I would be like, okay, um, who is saying what? I would listen to everybody, and
Mhm.
I'm sort of a servant leader where I'm like, okay, you guys do this. I'm here to help you. That is how I
Mhm.
see myself. And that is what
Mhm.
I have learned through my PMP certification too. While I was going through each and every chapter and all the examples that comes in the industries and everything, I was like, okay, this is what I would choose. And that would be the PMP answer. And I'm like, okay, that explains, right? So that is what I would do, and this is how I would navigate my um, path through those issues. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah.
Sure. And then, as you mentioned, right, when you're like having a team, you wanted to make sure that everybody in your team is heard, and
Yes.
you provide that platform to allow
Hmm.
them to freely express, right,
For
and
sure, yeah,
contribute.
for
Yeah,
sure, for sure. Because
right.
um, when we have had experience and we have seen that kind of varied people that we have worked with, and
Mhm.
when we are now like, okay, looking for roles in leadership and everything, we know that what we will do next, because
Mm.
we have already seen enough examples to what to
Sure,
do and what not
sure.
to do. And
Yeah.
like you have mentioned, like I also volunteer, so I meet
Mm.
great women there too, like including you, right? Even through this book, so many women that we met, so I see how
Mm.
they conduct themselves. I
Right.
see like how they are walking through their life. They're doing so many things at a time, and so many
Mhm.
stuff that they are
Yeah.
doing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that helps me see, okay, what is right, things
Mm,
to do, what is long term and what is short term, and
mm-hmm.
the behavioral tactics that you should have, so that
Right.
everybody feels comfortable around you. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm not in a bubble, but I feel like people do feel comfortable around me, because um I don't behave in a way that to bring them down or something like that. That is
Mm-hmm.
never my
Mm-hmm.
intention either.
Right,
So
right.
that
Yeah.
is that is the way I roll.
Um, so now I want to kind of turn a little bit on providing our audience to some practical tips on how you navigate those biases, right? Like we all know biases exist, and how you can then also build your influence as a leader.
Mhm.
So first off, that I want to talk about, um, as you mentioned and you shared some of those barriers and gender based as well. So what are those key biases that you need to deal with, like in your work, in particular, like in your work environment? Um, can you share some of that and how you navigate that?
So it's so great that you asked me this question, because the very same conversation I did have during one of my mentorship program. And when I was having that, like, so one of our mentees had same question, like, okay, what do we do, right? And
Mm,
this was very beautiful answer, which I do practice every week. I do practice. So, like, if I feel like there was a bias at the
mm,
end of the week on Friday evening, I sit
mm-hmm,
down and I look through full week,
mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
see if it is the biasness, have I created that biasness in my head, or it was really a bias? Was it?
Mm,
Right?
mm-hmm,
Before
mm-hmm.
calling out, before taking any actions, right? Was I really treated like that, or it is just the norm that we know something? And, because this is the human tendency. With the good and bad, we always go with bad first, because, our brain is like, okay, maybe something bad is going to happen. At least that is how it is with me. So I do calm myself down, and I'm like, okay,
Right.
what is it? Which is it? Is it
Mm-hmm.
because I am thinking like this or not? And then I
Mm-hmm.
would have a conversation. That is, like I said, like, to any
Mm-hmm.
problem, my solution is having a conversation.
Yeah. Right.
Because I
Right.
feel like there is nothing in the world that cannot solved by a decent conversation where two parties are willing to listen. So
For sure.
my
Yeah.
my my takeaway for audience would be this, actually. Like, if you ever feel that, don't just react to it just yet. Sit
Mm.
down, think. uh, was it like that? Have a
Okay.
conversation, right? And then you see if those behaviors are repeated, right? Those are the things that we can look at, and that is what I look at, if to
Mm.
confirm if it is like that,
Right.
right?
Right. I
So
see. Yeah.
yeah, so
So
that
you
is what
like
I do.
to, yeah. So you like to reflect on that first, right? Instead of
Yes,
like just give that reaction right at the moment, right? You like to
absolutely.
sit down and reflect and analyze it and maybe perhaps bring it up for a discussion and see if that is that true bias or not, right? Or
Absolutely.
is it you just kind of made it up in your head somehow,
Absolutely.
right? But there were times that we know for sure that this is a bias, right? Then at that point, I would say that yes, call it out, right?
Yes,
And
for
call it out
sure.
and deal with that right away, right? Otherwise, then you will continue being affected
Of
by
of course, yes.
those biases. Yeah.
So in those situations, what I have usually done is I would have a conversation. If I see that nothing can be
Mm-hmm.
done,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I would start looking for another job. There
If
is no
that's
other
there's no
that
other point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no other
Okay.
point, because you
Right.
have
Right.
spoken, you have taken
Mm, mm,
all the steps you could, right? You do
right.
not own
Right.
anything, so there is
Okay.
nothing more you can do. Um, you have informed everybody that you could,
Mm,
and that's about
mm,
it. Like, after that, what are you
okay.
supposed to do, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
uh, I would start, and I'm also like, okay, if you don't want me, why would I be
Mm,
here?
Mm.
It is also self-respect there, right?
Yeah.
You are at a
Yeah.
place, if they don't want you, why?
Mm. I think
Okay.
that that is an extreme case, right? If
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
yeah. That
case. So
is what
you
I'm
have
saying.
to take all the resource you could do
Yes,
before you make that decision,
of
right?
course.
But
Yes.
that there's that point and
Yeah.
now so I wanted to also bring up the point that I know that we probably are running out a bit of time there, but how about sharing some of the tips of how you build your executive presence, right? As we talk about a leader needs to have that executive presence. How do you do that? How do you use that and help you to accelerate your career?
So I participate in as many things and as diverse things possible.
Mm, mm-hmm,
So one of the main thing that has helped me is volunteering, because that has helped me connect with right people at right
okay,
time. And
yeah,
sometimes even if the time is not right, I can wait until it is
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right.
mm-hmm,
So that is the main thing that I have done.
okay,
Heavily networking, heavily.
yeah,
That is the
okay,
one thing. And I do put myself forward. Like, I do, sometimes I'm not even that good at stuff, but I anyway enroll, just so that I have that exposure, right? And you
mm-hmm,
never know. So I do that.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah,
I do that. I explore. That is what I
right.
do. And I
Sure.
recommend that to everybody. Like, everybody, you should not think, and this is the part of the imposter syndrome that we did
Mm,
speak about. Like, sometimes we
mm-hmm.
do feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. And
Yeah,
even today, sometimes I do feel
right,
that, but I'm so
right.
grateful for the people that I'm surrounded by.
Mm,
Somewhere down the line, they would be like, oh, no, no, you can do this. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And then I try. It could be good, it could not be that good, but it's fine. I
yeah.
tried. So at the end of the day, like, at least you tried whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is my
Right,
mantra. Like, if
right.
I want to do something, I'm like, at least I tried. I'm
Yeah,
happy with that. I'm
absolutely.
successful or not, that's a secondary question. But at least you tried. that
Yeah,
that that's what I
absolutely.
go with. Yeah. And
Right, right.
I don't know if I did mention this earlier, but I do have vision board, where I keep
Mm-hmm.
keep writing things and do all those stuff. So which keeps reminding me, okay, this is
Mm.
what you want to do. This is what you are supposed to do.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple others that I'd like to add on also is that you wanted to be able to communicate to people with authenticity and also being concise, right? And share with people's with ideas, right? Bringing that thought leadership out as well, and using the active listening skills, as you mentioned earlier, that you listen to others, right? Understand other people as well through their spoken and unspoken way as well.
True.
Like sometimes it's the body language also
Mhm.
helps you to understand a person, right? And that with that, I think that there's like great tips that you have shared. Thank you so much for doing that with us, Anu, and sharing your insights and expertise on the very topic on building a confidence, right? And helping you to overcome any barriers and to advance your career as a leader. Um, Now, I know because this is our recorded session this time, and it's not live, but then I encourage our audience and thanks for tuning in to bring out any questions you might have for us and put it on the comment, and I will come back to this for sure and have a discussion and continue a discussion and share knowledge and expertise on that as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Anu, and sharing that insights and practical tips on that to navigate imposter syndrome, building confidence, and advocate for yourself and influence and pave the way for other women in STEM leaders in the making. So for our audience, what is the one thing you can do today to navigate that biases that you might experience? And also, what is the one thing that you wanted to do and develop your executive presence, right? So and now don't forget, Anu is also on LinkedIn and you can find her there and follow her. And there's the book that you can see in my background there, the all the stories from different women leaders in STEM. Join us next time. We have another session on March the 7th, and our topic is going to be closing the gender gap in technology leadership. Stay tuned. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for next one very soon. If you're ready to amplify your leadership, schedule a time with me and explore our partnership to help you overcome the barriers, unlock your potentials, and amplify